Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm Gillian Arendse. I am your program director for this evening. I've just picked up on the energy in the room, and I think tonight is going to be a good night. Of course, I'm here to get you through the official part of the program, and then before you know it, we'll get to that moment where we have a cocktail. That moment where you can let your hair down. For those of you who don't have hair, we've got wigs at the back, so we will provide that for you. So welcome to this event. For those of you who've got mobile devices, I'm very, very happy to hear that you have the funding to buy yourself one. But please make sure that you have the volume down. We don't want it to ring and everybody then ends up looking at you. For those of you on social media, please, if you share, do use the hashtag 2022 NRF Awards. And talking about online, of course, a special word of welcome to our online viewers. There you are, sitting at home in pajamas, probably with a beer already. But allow us to get to the program, and then we will enjoy the cocktail. So we've got a full program. We've got the awards, we've got the guest speaker, we've got the keynote. Obviously, this is a celebration. So when we call you to the front, please, there are areas where you need to position yourself. The awardee will be in the middle, and there'll be a guy here taking a picture. Please wait for that person to give you either a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If it is a thumbs up, it is sachet away and you may go. If it is thumbs down, please do stay so that we can have another take of the photo because we want to capture this moment. So allow me then now to ask you to sit back and invite you to watch the screen as we introduce the 2022 NRF Awards.
At the cornerstones of history, in the forefront of our modern lives, on the cusp of a bold and bright tomorrow, fundamental research leads the way to the future of our dreams. From cosmic voyages to robots on Mars, from digital tools that connect us to remote control surgery, from seeding drones to carbon capture and storage. From the stories of our origins to the new understanding of the way we think, science has the power to amaze, to inspire, to inform, and to serve. But today we ask and expect more of science. Today we live in the constant hope that science will ensure sustainable development. We know that science is smart, that science is innovative, that science blazes new trails and creates new solutions. But can science prevent the next global pandemic? Can science develop the vaccines that will save millions of lives? Can science shield the earth from a climate catastrophe? Can science sow the seeds for an end of hunger and food insecurity? To find the answers, we need to start with the basics. The building blocks, the foundations, the fundamental disciplines that underpin every scientific activity. In the everyday practice of science, applications of technology are easy to recognize. What is less visible but equally vital to progress is the contribution made by science at its most fundamental. Science driven by curiosity, by practical, hands-on research, by the steady, hard-won accumulation of knowledge that drives innovation. In the laboratory or in the field, exploring the fundamental questions of science, often undervalued, often easily taken for granted. Now is the time to shine a brighter light on their contributions to our future. 2022 is the International Year of Basic Sciences for Sustainable Development. Setting the scene for a re-evaluation, a fresh commitment to the ideal that fundamental research can and must lay the groundwork for positive change. For effective, agile, and sustainable solutions that can improve the lives of people and communities around the world. Tonight, we celebrate South African scientists and researchers who are playing their part to bring this ideal to life. By breaking new ground, by leading the way, by honoring and applying the fundamentals of their discipline to unlock the new realization that helped to expand humanity's body of knowledge to create a better life for us all. Welcome to the National Research Foundation Awards for 2022.
All right, so there you have it. We are celebrating you. We are celebrating excellence. So let's get this show on the road. It's now my privilege to call to the stage the chairperson of the National Research Foundation Board, Dr. Nompumelelo Oboko, to officially welcome you at this event.
Thank you, Program Director. Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Mr. Buti Manamela, members of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Science and Innovation, led by Honorable Chairperson Ms. Mpendulo Mkhatshwa, the Director General of the Department of Science and Innovation, Dr. Phil Mjwaha, Director General of the Department of Higher Education and Training, Dr. Nkosinathi Sishi, our international representatives, as well as the leadership of higher education and the science councils, fellow NRF board members, the executive management of the NRF, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for making it and honoring us with your presence this evening for the 2022 National Research Foundation Awards. The theme, as earlier alluded, for this year's awards is celebrating the International Year of Basic Sciences for Sustainable Development. And on behalf of the National Research Foundation, I would like to welcome you all to what we hope will be a special and memorable awards ceremony. And as proclaimed at the United Nations General Assembly last year in December, this theme stresses the need for more basic sciences to achieve Agenda 2030 and its 17 Sustainable Development Goals. It is a global call for all of us to observe and raise awareness of the importance of basic sciences for sustainable development, and in accordance with national priorities. Distinguished guests, basic sciences and emerging technologies and innovation, they respond to the needs of humankind by providing access to information, knowledge that is generated, and increasing the health and well-being of individuals, communities, as well as societies. And earlier this year, as the country was beginning to show signs of recovering from the effects of the global COVID-19 pandemic, the country was hit by the devastating weather conditions that led to the loss of many lives and left KwaZulu-Natal immensely damaged, with over 17 billion of property that was damaged. We have also seen reports and unprecedented heat waves that swept through several countries abroad, and really these are clear signs that climate change, if not curbed, is the greatest threat to humanity. These challenges and many more speak to the pressing needs of basic sciences in our society and for the continued robust investment in science and innovation for the betterment of human life. An example of this is the NRF's Itemba Labs, which is the largest particle accelerator facility in Southern Hemisphere and the only cyclotron facility of its kind on the African continent. The NRF's Itemba Labs is committed to enhancing the quality of life of cancer patients, both nationally and internationally, by delivering a continuously increasing number of patient doses of nuclear medicine applications, and it has been producing these radiopharmaceuticals both locally and internationally for over 30 years. And on the other hand, the SARAO, which is the South African Astronomy Observatory, is involved in the Square Kilometre Array project, which is an international effort to build the world's largest radio telescope. The SKA will conduct transformational science to improve our understanding of the universe and the laws of fundamental physics, monitoring the sky in unprecedented detail and mapping it hundreds of times faster than any current facility in the world. It is also envisaged that the project will ignite interest in mathematics, engineering, and astrophysics as fields of study. And having said that, the South African arm of the project has already awarded hundreds of bursaries and grants in these fields. And in addition to the number of its groundbreaking initiative, the South African Astronomical Observatory, just this past year, we saw two completely new telescopes come to Sutherlands, namely Atlas and Prime. Prime is tracking for potentially hazardous near-Earth asteroids in collaboration with NASA. And on the other hand, Prime is bringing new infrared observation capabilities to South Africa together with the Japanese and the US collaborators. Basic sciences, ladies and gentlemen, have also been part of the foundation in our environmental science focus. The NRF South African Institute for Aquatic Biodiversity remains a major scientific resource for the knowledge and understanding of the biodiversity and functioning of globally significant aquatic ecosystems. While on the other hand, the South African Environmental Observation Network exists and tries to answer critical questions on where, when, and how our natural environment is changing, the causes of these changes, the effects thereof, and it finds solutions to mitigate and adapt to those changes. These questions and the knowledge that is generated thereof and the research focus are crucial and critical in our attempt to secure a better tomorrow for future generations. And it is the basic sciences that creates the foundation for all of this. As NRF, we also continue to make sustainable investment into a transformed and internationally competitive research workforce, which ultimately aims to serve the society and our people. Bearing testament to this is that over the past 5 years, the NRF has supported an increasing number of South African Black and/or women researchers. In 2020, for example, all were Black and 44% were South African women. And since 2016, the overall number of rated researchers has grown by 21%, and I'm happy that Black rated researchers, the numbers have increased to up to 55%. Despite these changes in incentive funding, the number of rated researchers increased by 16% from 2016 to 2021, and the Black South African women constituted half of the postgraduate students that received funding from NRF in 2021. Through such progress and countless more, the NRF is making headway in its mission to advance knowledge, to transform lives, and to inspire a nation. We are proud, therefore, as an NRF to exist within such an illustrious community, scientific community, with ambitious postgraduate students and leading researchers who, through their excellence and impact of their work, they help us to achieve what we set out to do. While we acknowledge that there is much that remains to be accomplished in the science and innovation landscape, it is reflective moments like tonight that reminds us of how far we have come, not only as NRF as an organization, but as a country and also as a continent. In conclusion, I look forward to the contributions of our science speaker this evening, Professor Koiresha Abdul Karim, and as we all know, she is a well-known and a South African epidemiologist and an NRF A-rated scientist who has made pioneering contributions over the past 32 years in the prevention of HIV in adolescent girls and young women. I'm also looking forward to our keynote speaker, Honorable Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Mr. Buti Manamela, this night. Ladies and gentlemen, I also want to take this opportunity and extend a heartfelt gratitude to the NRF board members for your sterling work during our tenure over the 4 years. And I also wish to congratulate all the awardees and that are being applauded tonight. Your contribution to the science system is truly invaluable. I thank you, and I wish all of us a great evening.
Thank you very much, ma'am. May I ask you to just remain on stage for me, please? You can go to one of the 3 little pieces of sellotape. And while you find your place, I'm also going to invite to the stage Dr. Mario Frista, who's the Director General of the Federation for Scientific and Technological Development in Angola, to assist us with our first category. Our first category for 2022 is the Research Excellence Award for Next Generation Researchers. The NRF provides funding to postgrad students in order to address the skills shortages in the fields of science, engineering, technology, humanities, and social sciences by increasing the possibility of retaining suitably qualified young scientists and thereby increasing the pool of researchers and knowledge workers in the national system of innovation. So this award recognizes outstanding academic performance by final year doctoral students. So let me introduce you to our awardees for 2022. For natural sciences, we have from the University of Cape Town, Ms. Jessica Fell. So Jessica, you position yourself in the middle. You stand, you wait. Tokens arrive, you grab them, you smile, he clicks. If there's a thumb, you sashay away. If not, you stand again. Right, ladies and gents, hopefully we explain it once and then the rest of you will just follow. She smiles and look at him. There we go. It's almost like rugby. Touch, pause, engage, and not action. No, wait. Is it okay? You may sashay away. Our second recipient for 2022, also in the natural sciences from the Durban University of Technology, Mr. Nhlanganiso Madondo. Celebration, so if I feel that you guys are a little bit stiff, I might even attempt to pronounce your names incorrectly. So let's see how that goes. You get your tokens. Are you ready to smile? Is this the first time that you've won something? No, all right. But it might be your last. So cameraman is ready and action. We check. Load shedding. And well done, congratulations. Our third recipient for 2022, also in natural sciences, also from the Durban University of Technology, Ms. Nonsikelelo Precious Mtetwa. Tetwa unfortunately cannot be with us, but this is a sister accepting on her behalf. Just making it up. Yeah, just making it up. All right, cameraman is ready. I promise it will go faster later on. All good? Our next recipient, also in natural sciences from University of Cape Town, Mr. Ati Welsh. Mr. Welsh is linked to the Department of Chemistry, and remember, this is our Research Excellence Award for Next Generation Researchers. So congratulations once again as you prepare to smile like you've never smiled before. Just look at that. Well done, Artie. Sashay away? No, sashay, you stay. Right. Then our last recipient for 2022 in the Social Sciences and Humanities, also from the University of Cape Town, Mr. Nkosiyomzi Matutu. Linked to the Hub for Decolonial Feminist Psychologies in Africa. Right, and give another round of applause to all our recipients for 2022 Research Excellence Awards for Next Generation Researchers. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Dr. Boko and Dr. Fresta, for assisting us with this side of the program. Right, so we're going to move on to our next category, and for this I'm going to call to the stage Dr. Nelwa Mondo, the NRF CEO, together with the Honourable Ms. Makachwa, the Chair of the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee, Higher Education, Science and Technology, to join us on stage as we introduce the recipients of You apparently will fulfill two roles this evening, so you have to jump between the two. All right. So our next category is the Research Excellence Award for Early Career Emerging Researchers, and the NRF aspires to develop and enhance the research stature of early career or emerging researchers, prioritizing Black, female, and people with disabilities as part of its transformation agenda. This award recognizes outstanding research performance by current, early career, or emerging researchers. So let's find out who they are for 2022. For natural sciences and engineering, we have from the University of KwaZulu-Natal, Dr. Andile Kati. Dr. Kati is linked to the School of Laboratory Medicine and Medical Sciences. Congratulations. I've never seen somebody so excited to get a trophy, my word. Even polished his hands. Our next recipient from University of South Africa, Professor Monye Mabele Bele. Linked to the Department of Agriculture and Animal Health at the University of South Africa. I just know it's going to be lovely. I just know it's going to... Yes, there we go. Next up, also from University of Cape Town, we have Dr. Wade Peterson. Wade has brought a whole group of people with to just cheer for him. So well done to you, Wade, Department of Chemistry. Right, then also from the University of Cape Town, Associate Professor Amir Patel. Professor Patel is linked to the Department of Electrical Engineering at the University of Cape Town. Sometimes people call him Wade. Yeah. And Wade, you'll probably pick up that sometimes people call you Amir. All right. But you two will find each other, and what was yours will now be his, and vice versa. Then our fifth recipient for 2022 from the University of Johannesburg, Professor Mpho Ivy Raborife. Professor Raborife unfortunately can't be with us, but her brother Thabo will accept the award on her behalf. Thabo, just remember to give it to her. All right. Then from science and engineering, we move to the social sciences and humanities from Nelson Mandela University, Professor Saiden Mishi. Right, let's give another round of applause to all our Excellence Awards early career emerging researchers. CEO, I know you've founded it a little bit, being all by yourself here, so I'm going to ask Mr. John Sturley, the account manager at Elsevier, to join you on stage as we move to our next category, which is the P-rated researchers. Of course, this specific category is sponsored by Elsevier, and that's why we're happy to have Mr. Sturley here. So just quickly, a P rating is assigned to researchers normally under the age of 35 who have held a doctorate or equivalent qualification for less than 5 years at the time of the application. These researchers are considered likely to become future international leaders. So let's introduce them to you for 2022. First of all, Professor Thulani Makalanye. Oh no. Thulani Makalanyane. I told you I'm going to do that. Just watch the screen.
I'm a microbiologist interested in environmental microbiology. Environmental microbiology is a wide-ranging field and includes research on humans, animals, plants, and marine ecosystems. In animals, studies have shown the importance of the microbiome in controlling susceptibility to disease, food cravings, and also behavior. Beyond animals, studies have shown the importance of the microbiome in soil nutrient recycling and providing important ecosystem services in the oceans, including carbon sequestration. The One Health concept recognizes the interconnections between people, animals, plants, and their environment. Microbiomes underpin these interactions, but we know surprisingly very little regarding their phylogeny and functions. As I mentioned previously, our work focuses on marine microbiomes. This is part of global efforts to understand the South Atlantic. Specifically, we aim to understand the effect of river plumes from large rivers, such as the Congo, and how that influences microbial dynamics in the South Atlantic. We are beginning to understand the effects of microbial communities on ecosystems. However, to date, we lack an understanding of the majority of microbial communities in natural ecosystems. This element of discovery and the potential to discover new microorganisms drives and fuels my research. I'm excited and driven by the potential to discover a diverse array of microbial communities from unknown and understudied ecosystems.
Right, from the University of Pretoria, here is the one and only Professor T. Congratulations once again. Right, I invite you now to watch the screen as we introduce the second recipient, who is Associate Professor Jessica Auerbach.
an anthropologist, defining the field of knowledge mobilities. I work on questions of inclusion, representation, human relationships with technology, and the ways in which Africa is understood and imagined locally and globally. So I've lived all around the world trying to make sense of what we know, how we know it, and how that shapes our imagination of ourselves and others at the macro but also the micro level. So my work is based on the ethnographic method, which means spending time with people, listening to them, understanding what they do, and knowing the stories that they tell about their lives. My research connects these stories with other realities to see what the points of intersection are. So I learned in school that North being up wasn't a real reality, but rather was a social and political construct that served the needs of European empire. And realizing that I wasn't actually at the bottom of the world has helped me to see the planet from different angles in my research. I think a lot of the challenges that we face in South Africa and more broadly come from not being able to extend compassion and understanding to those whose lives are very different from our own. Whether through looking at technology in Africa or post-war development in Angola specifically, or intergroup conflict in Mauritius, my work helps people understand one another more deeply and extends their ability to care. I think South Africa is a phenomenal place to study global systems such as capitalism because we live right within its effects, both good and bad. The challenges we face at the moment are very complex. Think of the pandemic, climate change, social inequality. In order to find answers, we need to draw on many different disciplines. My research allows me to feel the pulse of public sentiment, and I try to speak to that in constructive ways.
Right, let's welcome to the stage from the University of Cape Town, Professor Jessica. I hope you picked up from the video how interested students can look when they know that they're being filmed. So those of you who struggle in your lectures, just bring a camera, just bring a camera. Right, so that's our two researchers to watch out for, P-rated for 2022. Special word of thank you to Dr. Nell Wamondo and Mr. Sturley for assisting us with this part of the program. So from the P rating, we're going to go to the A rating. And I'm now going to call on Dr. Phil Mjwacha, the Director General at the Department of Science and Innovation, as well as the Consul General of the Federal Republic of Germany, Mrs. Tanja Verheid, to join me on stage and to assist us with the A-rated category. Because there are so many, we've split it up. We're going to do some now, and we're going to do the rest later on. So just to remind you, A-rated researchers are unequivocally recognized by their peers as leading international scholars in their respective fields for the high quality and impact of recent research outputs. Acquiring an NRF rating generates considerable acknowledgement and respect for the individual researchers as well as for their institution. So let's find out who our A-rated scientists are for 2022. First of all, Professor Linda Gail Becker. So Professor Becker is from the University of Cape Town. Of course, you'll pick up that because in this category they've received so many awards, the pictures go faster. They know where to stand, they know how to smile. I was right. The second recipient for 2022, Professor Johan Sillier. Prof. Sillier is linked to Stellenbosch University, specifically the Department of Practical Theology and Missiology. Our next awardee for 2022 is Professor Timothy Egan. Professor Timothy Egan is being given this award posthumously. I hope I pronounced that right. His wife, Dr. Joanne Egan, is accepting the award on his behalf. Our next recipient for 2022, Professor Riel Franzen. From the University of Pretoria, African Tax Institute. Our next A-rated recipient for 2022, Professor Victor Hulliston. Professor Hulliston is from the University of the Witwatersrand. Next up, we have Professor Hilary Yanks, linked to the Wit School of Education at the University of the Witwatersrand. With research expertise, critical literacy, language and education, early childhood literacy. Our next A-rated scientist, Professor Sandra Liebenberg. Professor Liebenberg is linked to Stellenbosch University, Faculty of Law. Next up, Professor David J.N. Limebeer. I do hope I've got that right. All the way from the University of Johannesburg in the engineering faculty, looking at advanced control methods, mechanical systems modeling, and vehicle dynamics. Our next recipient for 2022, Professor Thomas Meyer. Professor Meyer is from the University of Cape Town, the Department of Computer Science, specifically interested in knowledge representation and reasoning. You probably picked up how he reasoned which one to take first, as he got handed the tokens. Our next recipient for 2022, Professor Frederik Johan Raal. Professor Raal is from the University of the Witwatersrand, the Department of Medicine. do I pretend to not see what his research interests are because I might not be able? I know the Oji bit, but the rest is gone. All right, so that brings us to the end of our first category of A's. We'll get you two back later on. Thank you very much, Dr. Phil and Ms. Tanya, for assisting us with this part of the program. So you heard about her early on when the chairperson alluded to her being our guest speaker for this evening. I've known her for 2 seconds. So she was born, she grew up, and tonight she is here. She has published widely, she's received many awards, and apparently hot off Google, together with her husband Salim, they've just received the 4th Hideo Noguchi Africa Prize in Medical Research category from Japan for their work on HIV/AIDS and COVID-19 in Africa. Ladies and gents, your hands and mine for the one, the only, Professor Abdul Karim.
Dr. Arendse, thank you very much for that very warm and entertaining introduction. So I'm glad you took care of the entertainment because my job is to talk about science. So honorable and distinguished guests, friends and colleagues, it's a real honor and pleasure to be here this evening to address you on basic science for sustainable development. And I'm going to, not surprisingly, focus on HIV, TB, and COVID-19. But before I go any further, I want to congratulate all the awardees this evening. This is a very special evening to celebrate science. And I think COVID-19 has reminded us how important science is for society. And while we may not always appreciate it, I think we've set new bars. Now in this presentation, I'm going to give you a quick overview on the HIV and TB epidemics globally to give you a bit of context. And then I want to focus on the priorities for sub-Saharan Africa, including South Africa. Then I'm going to talk about some of the issues relating to the social challenges facing young women in this continent. And then, if I have time, I'm going to talk about COVID-19 and then make some concluding remarks. And I have to say, when I say we, in describing the research, I'm going to describe the work that Slim and I initiated in 1989. And in that time, we've made many friends, many collaborators, and have grown the team to over 300. And the we also includes the CAPRISA consortium that was established in 2002 that includes 5 institutions: the University of Cape Town, the University of KwaZulu-Natal, the University of Witwatersrand through the NICD, the University of Western Cape, and Columbia University in New York. So without further ado, let's get into the epidemic. And at a glance, in 2021 worldwide, there were 38.4 million people living with HIV, 650,000 HIV-related deaths, and 1.5 million new infections. So if in the past 2 years, you thought we were done and dusted with HIV and TB, this is a very stark reminder that we are seeing just over 4,000 new infections each day. Africa is home to about 70% of those infections, and South Africa, that has less than 1% of the global population, is home to 1 in 5 infections. Young women across Africa account for 1 in 4 new infections. Now, we've made great progress on increasing HIV treatment following the 2016 UN resolution of ending AIDS as a public health threat. A lot of our work has focused on the 1990 strategy, where 90% of people who live with HIV know their status, 90% of those are linked to care, and 90% of those in care and initiated on an antiretroviral treatment are virally suppressed. But you can see from this that we still have a third of the people living with HIV not yet on treatment, and we cannot treat our way out of this epidemic. And the prevention targets are a reminder that the 2020 target, intermediate to the 2030 goal, was 500,000 infections, and we had 1.7 million in 2019 and about 1.5 million in 2020. So we're 3 times off our prevention target. And unless we get on top of prevention, we cannot let treatment alone get us there. Now I'm going to shift a bit to TB. And 8 countries across the globe account for 2/3 of the global TB burden. But what's important to underscore and appreciate is 8% of all of our incident TB cases occurred in people living with HIV. In fact, TB remains the most common opportunistic infection linked with advancing HIV disease. In an era where we have antiretroviral treatment available for anyone who tests positive, this is quite an unacceptable situation that people get so sick, they don't know their status, and they're dying. In sub-Saharan Africa, co-infection is the highest, co-infection with HIV and TB, and it exceeds 50%. In some settings, it's closer to 70%. 60% of the TB notified in the TB register is from HIV-TB co-infection. So TB and HIV are the main causes of death and life years lost in South Africa and in fact in many parts of Africa. And WHO estimates here in terms of premature mortality from 2013 shows that the more recent data in terms of causes of years of life lost for South Africa is not too different in 2017. So now I hope that background and context give you an understanding about these 2 priorities that I will focus on, which is the high HIV incidence in young women between the ages of 15 to 24 years and the high death rates from HIV-TB co-infection. So in 1990, Slim and I, having just done our master's at Columbia University, when I looked at the P-rated scientists, I was thinking we were at 28 at the time. We did one of the first population-based surveys. And what we described that was published in AIDS was this age-sex difference in HIV infection. Not only did women have 4 times more infection than men way back in 1990 when we were dealing with the silent spread of HIV, but women acquired HIV 5 to 7 years before young men did. We see the later rise of infection in men around age 25, and this pattern of age-sex disparity on when women get infected compared to men is reflected in the map of Africa that's more recent and continues to show this age-sex difference that's largest in the countries where the highest burden of HIV, about 60%, continues, which is Eastern and Southern Africa. Now, when this data was published, it wasn't without critics and differing results. But it was much later, around 2015, 2016, when the omics technology started to emerge, that we were able to unravel this in an unequivocal manner and go beyond the epidemiological descriptions. And I want to start with this community-based HIV prevalence survey that was done in one of the highest burden districts in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, bearing in mind that there are about 11 of these districts across the 52 districts in South Africa. In the survey that included about 10,000 women, the overall prevalence was 36%, with 44% of women infected and 28% of men. But again, if you follow the red bars and the blue bars, the red bars being infection in women, blue infection in men, you see already by age 18, 1 in 10 women infected with HIV, compared to 6.2% in men. By age 21, that's 1 in 3. By age 25, it's almost every other woman. By age 31, it's 70%. And you see the rise in infection in men around age 25 and a rapid catch-up by around age 34. Now, this data in particular on age needs to be looked at in the context of the fact that 65% of our population in Africa is under the age of 35. So what we regard as a demographic dividend is being decimated by HIV and TB even before we get off the ground, impacting women, Sustainable Development Goal 5, more so than any other of the other markers and indicators we have. The phylogenetics work, where we were able to sequence viruses from recently infected individuals, was able to show us that where are these young women getting infected from? So it's not just about sex per se, but it's about who you have sex with. And what we see is that women under 25 are acquiring infection from men who are over 25, who in turn are getting infected from women who are their peers, the 1 year difference, who are over 25. And if these men only had sex with women under 25 or women over 25, we would have seen a very different epidemic trajectory to one that we continue to see. But it's because about 40% of the men in this study have partnerships with women under 25 and over 25, that we see this constant cycle of transmission as young women enter 15 to 24 years. Before they can say anything, there we are, lots infected. And this is what's sustaining this epidemic despite very high, very high background prevalence that I've just shown you. So this data was shared on Get on the Fast Track, which followed the UN Ending AIDS as a Public Health Threat declaration, and came back from the UN AIDS report to the SANAC strategic plan, our current one until we have the new one ready, and it's one of the priority actions there. Now, while we were monitoring this evolving HIV epidemic, and here looking at the blue curve, we started to notice in northern KwaZulu-Natal something happening with TB. And what was happening with TB was that it was shifted about 5 to 7 years, indicating this, this idea that TB and HIV are intertwined. And in fact, this intertwining of HIV and TB has reversed many of the gains we started to make in the early 90s on TB. So when we first started as a global community to make decisions about ARV treatment availability, a lot of rationing needed to be done for a number of reasons. And so the severity of disease was one of the markers used as to who will be initiated on treatment earliest. And we used the crude marker of CD4 counts. But one of the challenges we knew, those who would benefit most from antiretroviral treatment, no surprise, is those that are co-infected with TB. But at that point, there weren't any other countries, particularly industrialized countries, that had been providing ARVs, or anyone that knew when do you initiate antiretroviral treatment in those co-infected with TB. And what we saw was a whole range of expert opinions. And when we initiated this trial, there were issues of if you start treatment simultaneously, there's the double drug burden, there's side effects, and if you don't do this early enough, you also have to deal with death. So there was equipoise in terms of answering this question. So when we did this trial, we actually found a 56% lower mortality rate with integration of TB and HIV treatment. And since its implementation, and I wouldn't say it's 100% attributable to this trial, we've seen a 52% reduction in annual TB deaths since the SAPIT results. The SAPUT results contributed to WHO guidelines, and in fact, most clinical guidelines across the world includes this evidence in terms of how one treats people with HIV and TB. So moving on to young women. So by now you have a very clear idea of the challenge of infection in young women. But what did we have in the early 90s? Well, we had abstinence, behavior change, male-female condoms, condoms coming a little bit later, and then in 2009, medical male circumcision. So you have to ask yourself, which of these are prevention tools for young women in Africa, particularly young women who would need to negotiate all of those options with their male partners who are at least 5 or 7 years older than them? And this was very well captured in the late Zena Stein's commentary in the American Journal of Public Health, making a global call for women-initiated technologies. And we and others joined, we call ourselves the Zena Warriors, the quest to find women-initiated technologies. And what did we have? Not too different from COVID. Look at what's on the shelf and try and repurpose that. And what did we find? Well, 11 years of failure after failure. In providing antiretroviral treatment, we came across tenofovir, a very safe and effective therapeutic agent, and decided to change from using these repurposed, non-specific drugs to something much more specific. And we conceptualized the CAPRISA-04 trial, largely inspired by the women from communities who didn't want something to use every day, and the PMT-CT interventions, and a whole lot of other evidence, and came up with the results that were announced in 2010 and published in Science, that tenofovir gel prevents HIV in women, 39% efficacy overall, 74% with high drug levels. So subsequently, there were several other trials that demonstrated oral use of tenofovir with emtricitabine as pre-exposure prophylaxis. The data is very consistent in men, very inconsistent in women, if you're not in discordant relationships. And I'll come back to that in a few minutes. But in 2015, this then became a recommendation by the WHO and is part of standard of prevention. It's being implemented in many countries. Uptake varies. And I just want to give you a bit of a timeline there on this long road for HIV prevention technology from 1990 all the way to 2010. And I'm sorry to say that the story is not over. So these drugs that are anti-HIV specific or HIV specific have to be used to be effective. And what we see is when they are used, they are very effective. But what we also learned by measuring drug levels, because we had a positive test result, is that the threshold of drugs needed for women was substantially higher than that needed for men. And so we built on some early observations from the work of Joanne Mentel and Lindy Masson at UCT, where they found, using stored specimens from an acute infection study that I'll give you a little bit more insights on, that women who had genital inflammation as measured by a series of cytokines and a particular mix of these cytokines, 5 of 9, the sort of combination of these drugs, had an odds 3.2-fold higher of acquiring HIV infection. And what we found in looking at the microbiome of women who got infected in the CAPRISA-04 trial is that women with lactobacilli dominance had an efficacy of 61%, whereas those who had less than 50% had an efficacy of 18%. So how this links with drug levels is that the pro-drug is delivered needs 2 phosphorylation steps. So in thinking about what's competing for the phosphates, we had to look at these organisms in the genital tract and found indeed where you had this dysbiosis, you were seeing less efficacy. So not only is the genital inflammation, vaginal dysbiosis, enhancing HIV acquisition in women, it's also reducing the potency of tenofovir gel. So we have some clues now, including HPV and how it mobilizes activated CD4 cells to the point of exposure, enhances HIV acquisition. But I'm going to move on a little bit to say, well, what we know is that it's important to reduce HIV infection in adolescent girls and young women. The root cause of their vulnerability is gender power disparities, and this technologies that we're all working on is the first step to addressing a social challenge. Partnerships with communities are key, and products need to reach those most in need for scientific discoveries to realize their full potential. Age-disparate sexual partnering is a key factor driving high rates, and genital inflammation is a major biological risk factor, and that we need to continue our efforts to increase access to oral PrEP, but we also need to focus on some provider-initiated technologies that are less user-dependent. So when I mentioned the genital inflammation work, I said I'll return to acute infection and the importance of having well-characterized cohorts with specimens collected over time so that these repositories can be tapped into. And here you see, and I'm glad I just spotted Lynn in the audience and Kuleka as well, because they've been using this cohort, a cohort that was established in 2004 with about 256 women who have an over 90% retention rate. And it has created opportunities for masters and doctoral graduates at UCT, at WITS, at UKZN, and has enabled a whole new cadre of science leadership to emerge. And I think you saw several of them during COVID. Some of you may remember Penny Moore on TV. You may see Tulio around. You may see also Janal and others. Time doesn't permit me to continue, but as you can see here, a whole range of things that has advanced our knowledge of clade C pathogenesis, critically important for vaccine and for therapeutic development. And you can see all these incremental advances that have been made. But I want to focus now on CAPRISA 012 and a new concept or strategy, if you like, passive immunization for HIV prevention. So what we discovered about a decade ago is that the antibodies that are produced when you get infected is not equal and the same. And a few people produce these broadly neutralizing antibodies. Just over 30 of them have been described across the globe. So as these papers started to emerge, Lynn and Penny had this idea. Let's go into the repository and see if any of our CAP256 women who got infected developed these, and lo and behold, they found a couple. But the one that really was stunning, our real rock star, was, I'll use her number, her study number, which is 256, a 27-year-old volunteer who was enrolled in a pre-AI, the pre-CAPRISA 04 trial, who got infected on around mid-year 2005, was initiated on ARTs in 2009, doing fantastically well on antiretroviral treatment. But what the NICD team did was that after discovering this antibody in 2013, they worked very closely with the National Institutes of Health from the US Vaccine Research Center to find that B cell, which is like a needle in the haystack that makes these antibodies, and use that antibody immortalized it. Even, you know, it was like a Mercedes-Benz. They made it like a Rolls-Royce, so I don't know what's the best speedster around now, but it's really souped up, and we've made enough quantities of this antibody for animal and human studies. And this is the results from the animal studies. All of the animals that were challenged with the monkey equivalent SHIV had full protection. So we've now moved on and we've done first-in-human studies. And I'm sharing all of this because when we start with basic science and we want to invest in frontier research and take it all the way through, there are many, many challenges along the way. And here we've been able to do something that people said we can't or shouldn't do in Africa, which is first in human studies. We've done the 1-2 safety and PK trials of MAP combinations. And based on the AMP trial results, another passive immunity study, we've decided this new approach, which is to combine 2 VNABs, one from the US, VRC07 523LS, with Caprisa 256 V2LS, where this will give us coverage across 90% of the circulating clades, and at least one of them will hit a susceptible target there. And these are selected both for potency and breadth. And what we're doing right now is evaluating subcutaneous doses at 4- and 6-month intervals, so we can assess whether that 2-month interval in terms of final dosing will help. And it's designed to give us a safety signal and a safety and a signal of efficacy as a pathway to a larger efficacy trial. Again, a very, very long story from where we start to where we're going. But it's also a partnership across 3 continents, with each partner having clear responsibilities and goals. And we've also started something that we've learned when we participate in multi-center trials. There's no guarantee we'll have access when those results come out. And so we are working with Evotech to start looking at scaling up manufacturing and establishing those plants. And I think what's really important about this is that it's about a prevention method from Africa, from one of our participants, a gift, if you like, developed and tested in Africa to solve one of Africa's biggest HIV problems. And there's a bonus here. If this works, we actually have a much clearer roadmap for HIV vaccine development. With HIV vaccines, we face many, many challenges. And it's very different from COVID, and I don't have time to go into it. As I said, I speak on behalf of over 200 scientists and students working on all of these projects. I've listed some of the names, but we also have donors, diverse donors within South Africa, outside South Africa, from Europe, from the US, and many, many collaborations that have been developed over the years. And I don't think time allows me to talk about COVID, but just to say that with COVID, you know, as we sit here today, all of us having been isolated for 2 years, we've come a long way. And I think COVID has set a new bar in terms of knowledge generation. Unprecedented, 6 vaccines in less than a year. And what we've learned, you know, in the time of fear, anxiety, uncertainty, where our knowledge was incomplete, we did do the very basics of wearing masks, social distancing, hand sanitizing, isolating, etc. And then we had the vaccines. Vaccines brought us hope. But very shortly after that, we saw variants of concern that are able to evade vaccine immunity as well as naturally acquired immunity. So it's really changed the end game totally. What we're learning now as we enter the next era is that mildly symptomatic and asymptomatic individuals who get infected with COVID can develop, about half of them, long COVID. And I don't have time to go into the data, but I'm telling you, some of us in the room may have had COVID, and we know what long COVID looks like. That's the next tsunami we need to prepare for, because it comes with many, many different sequelae. We don't understand it totally, we don't understand it fully, and we cannot afford to wait and see, but we need to be more proactive, both in moving beyond just responding to sublineages or new variants, but getting ahead of the coronaviruses for us to build stronger and live more positively in this era of many, many pandemics. So I think you get a sense that there's a long time to do these things. In conclusion, I hope you appreciate that excellent and impactful science is alive and well in South Africa across many institutions. But that game-changing science is a long and slow process with many challenges and failures that are built on a strong foundation of locally nuanced knowledge of the problem and its evolution. In the introductory video, there was a point made about foundation. An epi is the foundation, followed by good pathogenesis, good cohort studies, and good repositories. And then we need long-term investments in science infrastructure training and capacity development. We need multidisciplinary teams and synergy between institutions nationally and internationally. We are too small a country to each of our institutions try to be experts. And in an era of increasing incomplete epidemics and pandemics, resilience and rapid ability to pivot to address new challenges is critical. We don't need to relearn that. We've just spent 2 years learning that. But I want to close with a key lesson from HIV for COVID, and that's the importance of mutual interdependence and shared responsibility. Global solidarity is essential, and this is not the time to monetize knowledge. It's essential to access life-saving medication equally across the board. Countries where individuals see caring for fellow citizens as important do much better than those where individuals focus on themselves first. And we have the good tradition of Ubuntu that really guides us in this togetherness and shared responsibility. And at the end of the day, when we have pandemics or epidemics, no one is safe until everyone is, in the words of Tedros from WHO. Thank you very much.
Very, very much, Prof, for that. I think just standing here is just this awareness that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, take people with. And I think if I just take that last little statement where you said, no one's safe until everyone's safe, I think maybe we can add something. No one is educated until everyone is educated. Because we need to find ways to help people understand what some of these things are that we're talking about. But thank you for that. It's been an amazing journey to travel with you through time. All I know that in 1989, I was a first-year student. So, it's long. And you were able to just keep going. So well done once again. All right, so just to allow that to simmer and to settle, we've arranged for a bit of an interlude. She's here. She's traveled far. I've never met her, but you will now hear her. The floor is yours, my dear. that we are related. Could you? But I think it's important for us to understand that as we listen to music, we got the sense that music has got the ability to move us. But I think it's important for us to understand that our stories have the ability to move people. Our stories have the ability to make people feel. And I think that's why it's important for us not just to publish our research, but also to talk about our research. So allow me now to continue our program as I invite to the stage Dr. Devli Damons, who's the Group Executive for Science Engagement and Corporate Relations, as we introduce to you the next category, which is the Public Engagement with Research Award. This award recognizes outstanding contributions to public engagement with science and encourages academics to make their work and science and technology in general more accessible to the public. So this year, for 2022, the awardee is Professor Darrell van Greunen from the Nelson Mandela University. Prof is linked to the School of Information Technology at the Nelson Mandela University. So well done and congratulations, and thank you for your commitment to share your research and to engage the public as you excite and motivate people. Was it good? Thank you very much. Thank you, Beverly, for assisting us with this part. Right, next up, I have to call back Dr. Oboko and Mr. Patel, who's the Deputy Director General of Research, Development and Support at the Department of Science and Innovation. So if you two would join us, please, Mr. Patel, and then of course the Chairperson of the NRF Board, and help us with the next category. The next category is the Champion of Research Capacity Development and Transformation at South African Higher Education Institutions. And this category recognizes individuals within the research community who contribute to the transformation and thus diversity of South Africa's science cohort through the research students they supervise. So we're first just going to watch a video to celebrate this exceptional person from the University of South Africa, Professor Azvi Helen Mabandu Mudzusi.
I'm in health sciences, but my field of specialization is HIV/AIDS management and advocacy, care and support for lesbian, gay, transgender, intersex and queer community. My primary aim is to prevent new HIV infection and improve the quality of life of people living with HIV and AIDS, especially in the rural community. I also advocate for the rights of LGBTIQ community and mitigate stigma and discrimination against this individual at the institutions of higher education and also rural community. I encourage students, especially Black females, to pursue their master's and doctoral degree. The moment they register, I encourage them to start communicating with each other for support. This also gives me an opportunity to provide group feedback, especially in relation to research-related matters. I continuously monitor them to ensure that they complete in record time. And those who graduate, I encourage them to publish and also to pursue postdoctoral fellowship. I would like to see majority of higher positions in South Africa led by Black South Africans with PhD, because I believe that educated leaders are able to make an informed decision. My primary motivation was to prove that manga amtukana asimachelo hawe, literally meaning that a crack in a heel of a boy is not his future. Wanting to prove that even if you are from a rural, poor, impoverished community, you can break all the ceiling and achieve what you want.
Right, let's welcome her to stage, Professor Azvi. Encouraging young people to break the ceiling and to reach their fullest potential. Now that's why sometimes you need to bring your PhD students with you so that they can help you carry. Congratulations once again. If you could just look at the photographer for us quickly. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Was that good? Congratulations. Let's give another round of applause. And thank you very much to Dr. Oboko and Mr. Patel for assisting us with this part of the program. Our next category is the Hamilton Naki Award, and I'm going to call on Dr. Clifford Nkomani, the Deputy CEO, National Research and Infrastructure Platform, to join me on stage to assist with this award. Named after the self-taught surgeon who trained generations of medical students in surgical techniques, the Hamilton Naki Award honors individuals for achieving world-class research performance despite considerable challenges. Again, we will use a video to introduce this exceptional person. For 2022, this award goes to Professor Rajent Mestri.
My field is linguistics, which covers all aspects of language history, structure, and use. My particular specialization is sociolinguistics, which studies the interaction between language and society at an everyday level. The most important areas of our work cover 3 language groupings. Firstly, we study English accents in post-apartheid South Africa, particularly the way that young people's accents have changed over the last 30 years or so. We might think of this as a kind of deracialization of the English language, because no longer is the prestige accent associated with one group alone. In this, women play a particular role. The flip side of this English accent prestige is a continuing use of Sotsital by young males in street-oriented culture. Sotsital is a series of speech styles and speech tricks used by young males as the antidote of middle-class formal accent prestige. We have also focused on language issues pertaining to old and new migrations to South Africa. In particular, we have focused on the Indian communities of KZN and New African migration. I should mention here the Dictionary of South African Indian English, which we compiled in 2010. The dictionary is devoted to recording all the nuances of Indian speech in KZN. My grandparents' generation of the 1920s were plantation laborers in KZN. My parents' generation were poor rural folk, so home and school resources were always modest. But the strong community spirit of the time ensured that as young students we understood that hard work and dedicated study were the way to the future. From our parents' generation, we learned the qualities of patience, perseverance, and sharing. These qualities have stood me very well in my career and which remain highly relevant to the greater populace today.
Let's welcome to stage Professor Rajent. I suppose in English we would say congratulations, but maybe I'm going to just say aware. So well done and congratulations again on receiving the Hamilton Naki Award for 2022. Camera ready. Congratulations, well done. Thank you very much. Thank you also, Dr. Clifford, for assisting us. Our next category is the NRF Acceleration Award for South African Research Institutions. And I'm going to invite to the stage Dr. Eugene Lottering, the NRF Deputy Chief Executive Officer, Research and Innovation Support and Advancement, or RISA. So derived from the words excellence and acceleration, the Acceleration Award acknowledges South African research institutions for achieving the most improved research performance over recent years as evaluated by independent parties and measured against a selection of critical indicators. So this year, the Acceleration Award goes to the University of Mpumalanga. So if we can have a representative from the University of Mpumalanga to join Dr. Lottering on stage to just receive your tokens. So well done again on your Acceleration Award for 2022. Camera ready, and there we go. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Dr. Lottering, for assisting us. Our next category is the Science Team Award, and I'm going to call Professor Abdul Karim together with Dr. Philemon Mjwacha to join us on stage again. Dr. Phil, you look so lovely. I mean, we just love having you on stage. I mean, that tie is just exceptional. Right, so the Science Team Award, in recognition of the contributions, creativity and achievements of a science team towards extending the boundaries of scientific research in Africa, producing science outcomes which have positively impacted society, and for the role they played in raising South Africa's international stature as a world-class research destination. So this year, the award goes to the Sydney Brenner Institute for Molecular Bioscience at the University of the Witwatersrand. Let them tell their own story with a video.
The Sydney Brenner Institute for Molecular Bioscience is a Wits University Genomics Research Institute and a centre for learning for young African investigators. Our scientific team guides large African studies that all involve genomic data from African populations. This provides the basis from which to include African individuals in international databases. Our team of 5 senior investigators leads studies on African population genetics and the bioinformatic analysis of large genomic datasets.
So the aim of our research is to identify the genes involved in common African cancers, particularly breast cancer and esophageal cancer. We scan the entire genome of thousands of African patients to find the genes which increase their cancer risk. And we use DNA sequencing to look at tumor tissue from the patients to identify the rogue genes which are driving the development of their cancer. We are building a team of young African scientists who will provide scientific support for a precision medicine approach to cancer diagnosis and treatment in South Africa.
The focus of my research is to generate a fine-scale map of the genetic landscape of the continent and to estimate how past events such as migration and intermingling of people, as well as factors such as climatic fluctuations and pathogen exposures, have uniquely shaped the African genomes. So my work serves as a scaffold that enables other members of our team to better design their studies and also suggest them the optimal analytic framework to conduct their work.
Bioinformatics is the application of computational techniques to solve problems in biology, and it's the heart of modern genomics. At the SBIMB, we apply state-of-the-art computational techniques to solve problems in population genetics, as well as finding genomic variations that might be implicated in disease. We're also active in building novel bioinformatics techniques and building computational infrastructure. We hope this will form the basis of precision medicine, tailoring drugs and treatments to different populations and individuals.
Together as a team, we address genomic risk factors for disease and the role of genetic variation in treatment response, thus enabling us to contribute to Africa's vision for genomics-driven precision medicine. Through targeted gene, whole exome, and whole genome sequencing, we continue to show that African populations have greater genomic diversity than other world populations, such as those of European and Asian ancestry.
Our goal is not only to do great science, but it's to grow the next generation of genomic leaders on the African continent.
I feel very privileged to be a part of a team that is contributing to the genetic mapping of our continent because it feels like I am working on my future.
Let's welcome on stage a representative or representatives, just one, of the Sydney Brenner Institute for Molecular Bioscience at the University of the Witwatersrand. Karim, you are welcome to leave the stage. Thank you very, very much. So we're going to get back to our second set of A-rated researchers, and I'm going to ask that Ms. Makachwa please join Dr. Funjwaha on stage to just assist with this part of the program. Thank you very much and welcome, madam. Thank you for being here. All right, so just to remind you, A-rated researchers, these are the guys who are recognized by their peers as leading international scholars in their respective fields, known for high quality research and impact in terms of their outputs. So we continue where we left off earlier, and our next A-rated scientist for 2022 is Oleg Smirnov. Professor Smirnov is based at Rhodes University in Makanda with research expertise, astronomy, and high performance computing. Which one to go first, left or right? Computer scientists, zeros and ones. Well done, congratulations. Is that a good photo? Right. Our next recipient for 2022, Devet Swanepoel. Professor Swanepoel is based at the University of Pretoria, Department of Speech, Language, Pathology and Audiology. If memory serves me right, apparently in 2010 you received a P rating, is that right? And here you are back, 2022, receiving an A rating. So when we identify you as the next big thing, we are serious about that. Next up, we have Robin Warren. Professor Warren is at Stellenbosch University's Center for Tuberculosis Research. Congratulations to you. I just love the way the gent carries the certificate. All good? Well done. Our next A-rated scientist for 2022, Andre Weideman. Professor Weideman is also at Stellenbosch University in the Department of Mathematical Sciences. Research expertise, numerical analysis, scientific computing, and applied mathematics. Our next awardee for 2022, Anushya Chimsami Turan. I messed that up, did I? I know I did. Can I just call you the dinosaur lady? Oh, right. The dinosaur lady. Just look at her. She doesn't age. You know? If you look at the picture and you look at the real thing, she doesn't age. Working with dinosaurs and all of that. All good? Next up, Mark Frederick Cotton. Professor Cotton is at Stellenbosch University, Department of Pediatrics and Child Health. Looking at infectious diseases, pediatric HIV. So it's touch, pause, engage. Good one. Right. Our next recipient for 2022, Jonathan David Janssen. Professor Janssen, Stellenbosch University at the Faculty of Education. Research expertise, curriculum theory. I hope I have it right. It's Janssen and not Janssen. You just want them a little bit more to this. Yeah. There we go. There we go. Our next recipient for 2022 is Lenore Manderson. Professor Manderson is at the School of Public Health at the University of the Witwatersrand, and this is a second A rating. Research expertise, global health and chronic illness. Fantastic. Our next recipient for 2022, Lynn Morris. Professor Morris is the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research and Innovation at the University of the Witwatersrand. So in between being a DVC, she also does a little bit of research on the side. I just love the color scheme of people coming in, right? They just all blend in. Blacks, whites. Beautiful, beautiful. No. Sachet, you stay and smile. Right, next up, we have Gerald Nurik. Professor Nurik is based at the University of Cape Town, second A rating in the Department of Mechanical Engineering. Focusing on impact dynamics. Yeah, maybe you should move from impact to strength. Eh? Is it heavy, the stuff? Congratulations. Next up, we have Valerie Mizrahi. Prof. Valerie is based at the University of Cape Town. This is a third A rating in the Institute of Infectious Disease, with research expertise looking at drugs and big words and genetics with other big words in front of it. Congratulations, and thank you very much to Honorable Tobile and Dr. Mjwacha for assisting us. Those are all the A-rated scientists who can be with us in person, and I will now just announce those who are unfortunately unable to be with us this evening. We have a total of 12 in this category, so we will just share the names with you. First of all, John Lebumba. John is based at the University of the Witwatersrand. Then we have Christopher Ballantine. Also, Professor Jenny Hubler. Then Professor Leslie Swartz. Professor Dirk van Zyl-Smit. Professor Florian Luca. Professor Willem Visser. Professor Nigel C. Bennett. Professor Pedro Kraus. Professor Len Barber. Professor David Chidester. It's a good thing he's not here. Professor Norman Owen Smith. So let's give a round of applause to all our A-rated scientists for 2022. Our last category in terms of the awards, of course, is the Lifetime Achievement Award, and I'm going to call on Dr. Fulufelo Nelwamondo, NRF CEO, together with the Honorable Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Mr. Buti Manamela, to join me on stage as we announce the Lifetime Achiever for 2022. So this accolade is awarded to individuals considered to have made extraordinary contributions of international standard and impact to the development of science in and for South Africa over an extended period of time, and for the manner in which their work has touched and shaped the lives and views of many South Africans. So ladies and gentlemen, as we listen to the drum roll, your hands and mine, but before we applaud, we first watch the video and allow the awardee to tell us more. The Lifetime Achievement Award for 2022 goes to...
I'm an applied ecologist who uses science to improve the management of natural ecosystems. My research is in two broad fields. The first is around biological invasions, invasive alien plants and so on, where we look not only at the ecology but how to manage them. And the second field is around fires, what the effects of fires are on natural ecosystems and how you manage them. I was born and raised in Cape Town, and Cape Town was a very different place to what it is today. There was open beaches and mountains and the sea, and it was a much less densely populated place than it is now. My interest in nature stemmed from collecting a set of 20 plastic Coca-Cola animals which you exchanged for bottle tops at the cafes. And after that I became a keen naturalist, a keen birder and a keen angler. I always wanted to be a game ranger, but there was no course that you could study. And then just in time when I matriculated, I found out about Stellenbosch University's BSc degree in forestry with nature conservation as a major subject. I applied immediately for that and I was accepted, luckily.
My father had a definitive influence on my career. We grew up in Jonkershoek and he tried very hard to make my first word be Swartboskloof, which was his study site. And while he failed in that endeavour, he did take us all around the country to lots of different nature reserves and national parks. We had many unique nature experiences, but we were also exposed to many discussions about the threats to biodiversity and to ecosystems. With my dad's determined nature, I decided that I was going to be an environmental lawyer. However, during my studies, I realized that I really enjoyed science, and I followed in my father's footsteps to become an ecologist, where I now work at sandparks.
When I graduated with a forestry degree, I got a job at the Jonkershoek Centre researching fire ecology and fynbos vegetation. and this then led to my MSc degree. Fires in fynbos also spread invasive alien trees, so my work on fynbos fires led naturally to alien plant management. I worked with colleagues on modeling the effects of these invasions on water resources, and this ultimately led to the Working for Water program, which both employs thousands of previously unemployed people and frees up water resources. I was appointed as the first program manager for the Working for Water program and went on after that to become the scientific advisor for the program. Later I expanded my research into savanna ecosystems. I took a sabbatical and worked in the Kruger National Park on the effects of fire and how they interact with elephants and trees.
Brian van Wilgen is internationally recognized for a substantial contribution to the fields of invasive plant ecology and fire ecology. But more important, he's recognized for framing his research in such a way that it leads seamlessly to implementation. In fact, I would say that puts Brian in a very small group of scientists globally, his ability to bridge the gap between research and management.
Overall, Brian's example really shaped my own research career in many ways and even my own fields of interest. Brian used sensible and simple methods rather than trying to baffle and impress with complicated and expensive materials and methods. Brian basically laid the foundation in the fields of fire ecology and invasion biology in both fynbos and savanna systems, which is really significant. I have huge respect for Brian as a colleague and a scientist. It was a privilege to work with him, and I think his research work will have a significant impact on conservation today and into the future.
Brian's research on the role of fire in Mediterranean-type ecosystems and savannas has been highly influential. His work on how fire interacts with invasive plants and how this influences the options for management has been highly cited. He has published important papers on the impacts of invasive species on biodiversity and ecosystem services and on optimizing strategies for their management. Brian's research over more than 40 years has had a huge influence on ecosystem management in South Africa and has also inspired a new generation of researchers.
I hope that my work has helped people to understand the ecological role that fires play in ecosystems and also given them the tools to manage fires better. With regard to alien plants, I hope I've raised awareness of the threats that they pose to ecosystem stability and conservation. The work that I and my colleagues have done has certainly provided the justification for embarking on widespread control programs and also provided unemployed people with the opportunity to get jobs.
The best thing about growing up with my dad was just, I guess, the places we got to stay and where we got to visit, and we were always surrounded by nature, and he would always teach us about everything we saw, to look at the small details, to focus on the little things, not just the big details. Yeah, to really take an interest in how things work and how the world is interconnected. I think I've applied that to everything that I do in my life, just that curiosity. It's stuck with me, and it's really helped to just broaden my horizons.
We are very lucky to live in one of the most biodiverse countries in the world. We've got everything from rainforests to deserts, and from coral reefs to cold water kelp beds, and everything in between. If you want to work as an ecologist, there's no better place on earth to do it. There are many challenges out there, and we will need motivated and dedicated scientists to deal with them. Ecology will remain a very important career.
All right, so let's welcome him to the stage, Brian van Wilgen. So 40 years of just setting things alight, is it? Let's give another round of applause to our lifetime achiever for 2023. All good? Brian, you're welcome. If you want to say a couple of words, thank you, Doc. And then after that, Honourable Deputy Minister, you may address us. Yes, that should be alive.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think I should start by congratulating all the other people who've received awards tonight. You've all done something really special, and you've now got recognition for it, so congratulations. I'd also like to thank the NRF for recognizing me in this way. I know there are lots of other potential candidates out there, and it's a real privilege to be given this award, so thank you very much. Whatever I might have achieved, I haven't achieved by myself. Lots of people have helped me. I was looking back across 50 years of publications and reports. Must be 200 to 300 co-authors. I can't name them all now. It will take us to midnight and past. But I would like to single out a few people. This is dangerous because, by singling out some people, you have to leave others out. But I think 4 people in particular. The first was my friend and colleague, the late Dr. Fred Kruger. Fred was my first boss, and he taught me how to do field ecology. He had a fantastic work ethic, which he expected from all of us as well. He gave us stretching targets so that we could grow. And he played that role in my life for about 25 years. I'm very glad that before he died, I published a review paper, and I dedicated it to him. And I'm glad he saw it before he passed away. The second person I'd like to thank is Dr. Guy Preston. Guy Preston was the real brains behind the Working for Water program. We provided him with the scientific evidence around what invasive species could do, but he had the political clout and he raised the money. And that gave us fantastic funding for over 20 years to pursue this topic and to make a lot of advances in science. The third person is my friend and colleague, Dr. Dave Richardson, Professor Dave Richardson. Distinguished Professor Dave Richardson. Dave reported to me at the Jonkershoek Research Center in 1980 as a recent graduate in forestry, and he was given the job of looking at invasive pines and hackers in the fynbos. And we collaborated for over 10 years on that, and it was a very productive time, and he went on to become an academic and a world leader, A-rated scientist in his field. And when I left the CSR, he offered me a job at Stellenbosch University at his center. And at one meeting we were at, I quipped that, I was his first boss and he had to answer to me. And now he's my boss and I have to answer to him. To which he said, well, I don't ask you anything. And that was an introduction to academic freedom. The universities don't seem to mind. It was, working in the CSR, where I was for 20 years, was a pressure cooker. And in the universities, they don't mind what you do, what you research, as long as you do it properly. The fourth person I would like to thank, last but not least, by a long way, is my wife, Jane. She's over there. Hello, dear. Jane has shared my interest in natural world for over 40 years now. She's provided stability in my life. And what's more, she's put up with me all this time. So thank you for that, and I love you very much, and I hope that you put up with me a little bit longer. Then just something quickly for the next generation of ecologists. Ecology is not always a fashionable field to study. And I know that many, many families in this country cannot afford to send their children for tertiary education. And if they can only send one person. And there's a lot of pressure on that one person to become something, to become a doctor or a lawyer or a successful business person. But I'll say to them, the world's in trouble. We're facing huge environmental problems, and we're going to need more and more ecologists, dedicated ecologists who are going to be able to help us with these problems. And as I said in the video there, you could find yourself in no better place than being in South Africa. Such a diverse country. All of these ecosystems, as I said, everything from deserts to rainforests, from coral reefs to subantarctic islands. It's a fantastic and rewarding career. So I'd really encourage you to follow that. You're probably not in the room here, but maybe they'll get this message. Thank you very much.
Well done. Thank you. Thank you for all the effort, the years, and for those of you with small kids, if your child plays in the sand, let them play. Who knows, they might end up like Brian. So I met you, not yet, but you are here. You were born, you grew up, you traveled. You look at me, I look at you. Ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Deputy Minister Buti Manamela.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Gillian Arendse. And I think you've been doing quite a splendid job to keep us focused on the podium and on the recipients of the awards. So thank you very much for the good work. Let me extend greetings to Ms. Nompendulo Mkasho, who's the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Science and Innovation. And I bet the only other person who doesn't have the prefix doctor. Yeah. Dr. Phil Mjaha, who's our Director General at the Department of Science and Innovation. Dr. Nompumelelo Oboko, who's the Chair of the National Research Foundation, and the CEO, Dr. Fulufelo Nelwamondo. And I think I would be remiss if I don't extend special mention to, firstly, our guest speaker, Professor Quraisha Abdul Karim, with quite an incisive address that I think we need to look at how that informs our policy as it relates to not only HIV/AIDS and tuberculosis, but also the COVID-19 pandemic. I didn't know there's something called long COVID, so it's probably something to look at, but also our Lifetime Achievers Award recipient and also the vice chancellors of various universities who are here, heads of various scientific research entities, the recipients also of the various awards. A special congratulations to all of you for your well-deserved awards and for breaking through the veil that concealed new knowledge from all of us. But I think it is also quite pleasing to see that the recipients are an array of the demographics of our society, and with special representation from women and a lot of youthful energy that has been evident this evening. And of course, as you have noted in your own report of the National Research Foundation, a lot more, both Chair and CEO, needs to be done, not only by you, but by all of us, institutions of higher learning, in particular universities and universities of technology, in order for us to see more and more black and women researchers, so that we could see more of them being recipients of awards. Importantly, because this is not merely about representation, I think it's also about agency. It's also more about research going into issues that affect black and women in particular. Distinguished guests, it is quite an honor for me to be a part of this and speak at this prestigious event. The capacity of any country to respond to its social and economic challenges is dependent on a number of variables. One such variable is the extent to which governments make bold investments in the development of their human capital, but also in research and development. The pursuit of new knowledge to understand our world deeper, to confront new problems at the pinnacle of all solutions, to problematize social relations and ultimately create a just world order would always be at the center of human activity. This is who we are, and this is how we want this world to be, so as our interaction with it results in sustainability for both nature and human. For us as a country, the National Research Foundation is one of our premier and esteemed human capital development agencies. over the years, it has been doing commendable work in ensuring that we produce high caliber scientists and researchers, many of whom are making significant contributions on a number of global platforms. While it may seem self-explanatory, I believe that we must always ask the question, what do countries train scientists and researchers for? Our country essentially trains scientists and researchers with the expectation that through their specialized knowledge, they would lead humanity in the search for solutions to the day-to-day problems of human existence. In the 2022 Global Risk Report of the World Economic Forum, they make a number of thought-provoking observations which help us to gain a deeper sense of the challenges that face humanity in the 21st century. The report notes that at the beginning of, as 2022 began, COVID-19 and its economic and societal consequences continue to pose a critical threat to the world. Vaccine inequality and a resultant uneven economic recovery risk compounding social fractures and geopolitical tensions. In the poorest 52 countries, home to 20% of the world's population, only 6% of the population had been vaccinated. The report goes on to note that by 2024, developing economies, excluding China, will have fallen 5.5% below the pre-pandemic expected GDP growth, while advanced economies will have surpassed it by 0.9%, widening the global income gap. The report also warns that these disparities will create tensions within and across borders that risk worsening the pandemic's cascading impact and complicating the coordination needed to tackle common challenges, including strengthening climate action, enhancing digital safety, restoring livelihood and societal cohesion, but also managing competition in space. There are at least 3 deductions we can make from these observations. The first being that the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic altered our world in ways we never imagined possible. 2, that the pandemic has in large measure exacerbated some of the development challenges that were in existence before its advent, and that this is particularly true for us in the developing world. But the third and most crucial point links to the theme that you've chosen for this award, which is a profound and apt reminder of what we should focus on as policymakers and as scientists. As I understand it, your theme enjoins us as policymakers and scientists to take bold and decisive action that is aimed at involving the lived experience of the people of the world. In the South African context, employing the basic sciences to achieve sustainable development implies a number of things, and I wish to deal with at least 3 of these areas. 1 being the need for us to deal boldly and decisively with the persistence of inequality in our own country. A report titled Inequality in Southern Africa, which looked at and assessed the Southern African Customs Union this year in March by the World Bank, makes some sobering observations on the nature of inequality in South Africa. It notes that the South African Customs Union member countries of Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Namibia, and South Africa represents the world's most unequal region, though there are differences across countries, with Namibia and South Africa distinctly having higher inequality than the rest, and Lesotho the least. But it further notes that South Africa, which is the largest country in SACU, is the most unequal country in the world, ranking first amongst 164 countries in the World Bank's Global Poverty Database. In this respect, our generation of policymakers and scientists will have to make sure that our expertise in the basic sciences are consciously deployed to strengthen existing poverty reduction interventions by, among others, developing evidence-based policy interventions that radically enable equality of opportunity and address the highly skewed distribution of income and productive assets in our country. The second issue of importance is that of ensuring that the majority of our country's young people have access to quality education and economic opportunities. This is particularly urgent if we consider what I regard as one of the biggest problems facing our country, and that is the number of young people who are not in education or in training or in employment. Stats SA says to us that while slightly more than 1.6 million or 63.9% of young people are unemployed, a little over 3.5 million of them are not in any way engaged in some economic activity. To resolve this, we'll have to critically review our current education and training interventions, and one of the areas we will have to give greater attention is the nature of the qualifications that our academic institutions are offering, and whether these are empowering our young people to become independent thinking problem solvers who have the tools to become self-sufficient economically and otherwise. Equally important is the need to ensure that we make wise investments and interventions at the basic education level so that we're able to reduce the high number of learners who drop out before grade 12 and minimize the burden on our higher education system, and it having to deal with some of the development gaps that exist at basic education level. The third and last area I wish to focus on is the importance of improving access to quality healthcare for all. While there is every reason for us to be proud of the role that our scientists and researchers have and continue to play in enhancing our national and the global capacity to respond to COVID-19 pandemic, our national public health system continues to be plagued by a number of systemic and structural challenges. And I promise you this brief is not from the MEC of Health in Limpopo. A 2021 journal article titled Bridging the Health Inequality Gap, an examination of South Africa's social innovation in health landscape, paints a very disturbing picture about the healthcare challenges that our country is confronted with. It makes the following observation, that firstly, we face healthcare challenges in three major areas: the growing quadruple disease burden, systemic and structural challenges in service delivery, and societal challenges associated with poverty and unemployment. Secondly, vast burden of diseases is a major challenge, and the overburdened public health system is unable to accommodate increased demand. And thirdly, South Africa's quadruple burden of disease consists of HIV and AIDS, communicable disease, non-communicable diseases, and also violence and injuries. Fourthly, the consequence of these colliding epidemics is high levels of mortality and morbidity. And that also, South Africa has the world's largest population of people living with HIV/AIDS, and I think the presentation from the science speaker earlier today was quite evident about how this challenge remains persistent. We may have put most of our resources and focus for the last 3 years or so on COVID-19, but the reality is that with COVID-19, both HIV and tuberculosis became and remained persistent, with 7.1 million people who are afflicted and one of the highest incidence rates of multi-drug resistant tuberculosis in the world. But also that our country is further experiencing a growing burden of chronic non-communicable disease. In 2016, cardiometabolic conditions, which includes diabetes, cerebrovascular, heart and hypertensive diseases, and other non-communicable diseases accounted for 57.4% of deaths in the country. The healthcare system also consists of a large poorly funded public sector and a small better resourced private sector, and in addition to this are a range of systemic and structural challenges which include widespread inefficiencies, staff shortages, variability in skill sets between rural and urban areas, and suboptimal care levels and patient management. I highlight these three interrelated challenges, which is inequality, unemployment and economic participation of young people, and also the challenges confronting our healthcare, precisely because we need to remind ourselves that while tonight is indeed about celebrating the hard work and sacrifices of all those who are being honored here, the challenges of our time also requires that we take some time at an event such as this to reflect on the condition that people are confronted with out there, and that the problems that society in general faces will persist as long as academia, and in particular the pursuit of new research and development, doesn't step up to ask difficult questions and to help us look at much more difficult solutions if we're to resolve all of these challenges that I've spoken about. So, and I think it's a profound challenge that we want to pose today as part of the celebration of those who have received the awards. I have no doubt that the esteemed scientists and researchers that are gathered in this room share in our government's commitment to ensure that our collective effort should result in us bequeathing to our grandchildren an efficient and functional country, but also one that can be looked at as a model for other countries across the world to look at. We commend the National Research Foundation for consistently maintaining the high standard of this award. And once again, congratulations to the esteemed scientists and researchers who are being honored here today. Thank you very much for listening. Sushe.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. Thank you for that spotlight, reminding us to not forget about issues around inequality, education, and health, and probably trying to say to us that there's a difference between doing things right and doing the right things. As a researcher, you can look down, but every now you have to look up, because your research is only relevant if it's connected to reality. So thank you for being with us, and thank you for sharing the stage with us this evening. I now call to the stage the CEO of the National Research Foundation, Dr. Nel Wamondo, to reflect on the evening, to share some closing remarks before I invite you to the cocktail.
Good evening. I'm going to try that again. Good evening. Thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and that includes everyone here. Safe to just say protocol, all protocols observed. We've really come to the formal close of this wonderful celebration of these 2022 NRF Awards. I remember last year when we had these awards, we had them under different conditions, where we were all masked, and we had a very small group of less than 50 people sitting at the NRF offices last year. So I'm quite impressed to see the turnout, and I think it's maybe quite evident that the world is getting back to some kind of normalcy. So thank you very much for joining us. It has been an honor for me to sort of have these interactions with you, and I'll talk about this in a moment. But one thing that I want to start by reflecting on is last weekend I was watching the Comrades, and Honorable Mkhacho, I'm not talking about Comrades of any political party. I'm talking about Comrades Marathon last weekend on Sunday. And it was pleasing to see Teddy Jana winning the race. But that made me reflect on so many things as part of his journey. I saw his boss here, Vice Chancellor, Bismarck there. I'll come to this point as well just now. The key part was that when I look at what he has done, him being a security guard and running that race and winning. This was his second attempt. First attempt was in 2019, and he took position 50. Now he then tried again, then he won the race. As I was reflecting on that, I couldn't resist imagining the number of people who might have asked him questions along the way. One of the questions could have been, Chief, forget about this race, man. It's not your thing. Just go and get a dog training certificate, you're a security guard, or get a firearm license, and so forth. There could have been a number of things that could have discouraged him along the way, including someone saying, you know the person who won it last time, the person who won it even 2 years before. They're all going to be racing against you, and you were number 50 in the last race. So what do you think you're doing? And this thing has nothing to do with your business. But what he did was amazing in that in 5.5 hours, he then won this race. But a lot of work had gone into the preparations for that 5.5 hours. Where probably, I don't know, Vice Chancellor, I don't know how much he earns as a security guard. But by him winning that 250,000, it could have been, I don't know, 40 times his monthly salary. But that's another conversation. He had invested a lot of effort to succeed. As the NRF, we invest, and hear me very well here, we invest in knowledge generation that will lead to innovation. I'm using the word invest, DG, on the basis that there must be return on investment. It's not just an investment, it's an investment where there must be a return on investment. As we invest, we are guided by our mandate. And our mandate includes the advancement of excellent scientific research in South Africa. It includes the support and development of the necessary human and infrastructural capacity. It includes leading and managing key national research facilities, addressing the relationship between science and society, and the promotion of the national science system. It is thus very important for us to acknowledge and celebrate the contributions that are made, or that were made, by the shining stars of our country's scientific cohort, researchers and institutions alike, who have committed themselves to scientific excellence that explores uncharted territory to create a more socially conscious and sustainable future for all members of our society. By that, I'm talking about impact. And that's what we must be celebrating. And I think what we've seen earlier talks to that element where we are saying we want a research that makes impact, and we will recognize that. The NRF Awards event owes its success to several persons, to whom I would like to pay a short tribute. Firstly, let me thank the Honorable Deputy Minister for taking time out of his very busy schedule and joining us. But most importantly, for the keynote address, which highlights not only our progress, but also where we can still actively do more to reach the goal of a society that's free from poverty. Society that has less burden of diseases, that has less inequality and less unemployment. Let me also recognize the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Ms. Nompendulo Mkacho, and the other members of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Science and Innovation who are here. Let me acknowledge DG, Dr. Munjwar, who was supposed to have DG Sishi as well on the higher education side, but he couldn't join. And I won't get into the details here. I think I ran the risk of missing a few names. We have quite a number of DDGs that I've seen. We really acknowledge their support. But what is also very important for me to acknowledge and maybe emphasize this point is the recognition to the higher education leadership represented by a number of vice chancellors. I've seen almost half of the vice chancellors of the 26 universities, probably at least 13 are here. So I think a number of them are here. So let me acknowledge them and just talk about some of the conversations very briefly of what we are trying to do as an NRF with these universities. Is to rethink certain things so that the strategic shifts that are necessary are implemented and we work together with the universities. These are the conversations that I'm having with all the universities, where we are saying there are certain issues that need to shift, and let's work together. Let's try to ensure that the shift is realized. We need to ensure that the system becomes vibrant, and this is the time. I don't think it's now an option, it's just an issue of how do we ensure that we become a science system that is solving issues. Ladies and gentlemen, I think one particular issue that is also linked to this shift is the conversation that I had this morning with the awardees. So we met, I'm not supposed to say this here, but again, part of the challenge that we had with them was to say, let's look into these things. How do we, what is the role of the NRF in advancing the science system? What is their role? What is your role? How can we work together as partners in solving the issues that the community face? And of course, a few ideas were presented. We are going to build on those ideas and ensure that we work together in building the South Africa that we require, in building a South Africa that solves problems. South Africa that, through science, makes that impact that I spoke about. Let me recognize Professor Karisha Bulkarim, who I know has just driven, rather flew for 22 hours coming to this award, so we really acknowledge that. Her herself being an A-rated researcher who in the year 2014, she received an A2 rating and an A1 rating in 2020. So that's quite an amazing element. I want to also just single out something that relates to the youth. And I will use Yvette, who's, I'll call him a friend. A few years ago, we established the South African Young Academy of Science. And I think when he got his peer rating, it was the same time, probably within a year or so apart, that I got my first rating as well. That was around 2010 or 20, I think my NRF staff can check. Either 2019, 2020. But at the time, we always had this view that to move from any of the young categories to an A takes about 25 years. I think that's what we say, Dr. Kati. But it's quite impressive to see such kind of a progress from a young person moving from, a P to an A in about 12 years. That's very, 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 very amazing. But the key part here, colleagues, is that we need to invest, and as the NRF, we are going to invest largely on the young cohort to ensure that we can have new A's in the near future, hopefully not in 25 years. That has a lot of young people, that has a lot of people who are dedicated to solving issues that are relevant and who are very active and who are transformed in various forms. And it is one of the things that DG, when we met with the awardees, we were saying even to the A-rated, can we commit in them helping us in building the new cohort of the A's? And we are going to support that. Let me acknowledge the outgoing NRF board. I see a number of members here. I won't make you stand, but we really appreciate your leadership under the chairperson, Dr. Oboko. I think your commitment to the NRF and to its continued growth and success into the future is greatly appreciated by myself and my entire executive team at the NRF. Our core as an NRF, and in that core, we support excellence in the basic sciences, nurturing and mainstreaming new generations of scientists across scientific disciplines to carry out impactful work in a research environment that is equitable, that is inclusive, and that is transformative. we have to emphasize this element, and I think there are 4 elements to this part, which I think all of us have to think about. One is, of course, excellence has to take place. We have to maintain an excellent system. Excellence is a cornerstone. If we are not excellent, we might as well forget about the science that we're talking about. So we are still going to build on the excellence. We talk about sustainability. We have to find ways of ensuring that our system is sustainable. Financially, I know we don't have a lot of money, the system is, the fiscal is constrained, but we need to find ways of ensuring that sustainability. We have to make sure that transformation happens. And this is the element where maybe some of the strategic shifts need to take place, and this is in the broader context. And with all of those things done, we should then move towards having huge impact. Again, Program Director, I want to say, if the science is not making impact, I think we need to rethink, because we have a lot of problems that we need to solve. When you look into the data that was shared today, I think it's sort of challenging to everyone's mind when you realize that South Africa has over 30 million or over 55% of our population of people who are living below the poverty line. And the question is, how do we use science? How do we use our strong position in science in solving some of those issues? I want to acknowledge Professor Brian van Wilgen, who received the Lifetime Achievement Award. And let me just say congratulations once again. I want to also just emphasize one point, that for the younger generation, and this is the P and the Ys who might be watching on the screen, because we didn't call them here. I do believe that the future of science and innovation belongs to you as a young generation. And I want to say, again, I'm going to emphasize what I said last year, that please come talk to us as the NRF so that we can support you. Raise issues that you feel that are problematic, and we are willing to work with yourselves and the leaderships within your universities. I think they are very much open to supporting the young generation, because that is the future of our science system. With this said, I want to just acknowledge just the last few people here. One of them is that I think we have a lot of partners here that I'm not going to go through the details. We have our science councils on the African continent that are well represented for the first time. I think we have this award session that has a lot of our colleagues from Mozambique, people from Angola, you can name it. We also have a lot of embassies that are represented here. I'm not going to acknowledge everyone. I think this is quite remarkable that we have such a representation. And again, this is something that we are saying, we want to solve these issues, we want to build these partnerships with African science councils or science granting councils to ensure that we solve problems collectively. I want to acknowledge my wife, who disappeared. I think she found better friends. She was supposed to be sitting with me here, but somehow, yeah, maybe she found better friends. She has been my pillar of strength in this hard work that we have at the NRF, so thank you for that. Most importantly, I want to acknowledge the NRF staff who have been working behind the scenes to ensure that you can have these awards. These are the people who, I can tell you, spend much of their time not sleeping, ensuring that panels are constituted, making sure that we're getting the reviews, we are assessing, we are, all this work that happens that lead to these awards, or to you getting your grant, or to you getting your rating, whatever it is. These people do a lot of work, and I want to just acknowledge them, and maybe let's give them a round of applause. That, by the way, includes the program director. He's one of our staff members. So in closing, I want to say congratulations once more to all our 2022 NRF Award recipients. May your excellent scientific achievements and contribution to science and this country continue into the future. Your efforts continue to highlight the role of science in finding viable solutions to many of society's ever-present challenges. I don't think one can argue that there are not enough problems. We have a lot of problems that one can pick, and let's solve those problems. As said by NASA scientist Alan Stern, nothing in what we do, the technology, the management, the innovation, nothing in the science that we can accomplish is as important as the way in which we can touch and inspire people with our work. And I think that's very relevant to us as well. We have to make this science inspiring. We have to make it sexy. That's the only way that we are going to change the world. That's the only way that we are going to make South Africa a better place. So I want to thank you all and trust that you will continue the celebrations in the cocktail event. I think we want to use this as a networking event. This is a time where we need to network. And maybe a particular point as a parting shot on the networking element. When we had this event earlier, it was interesting that you'll find people in multiple, in related disciplines, but separate, not even talking to one another in the same university. So I think here we're going to give you an opportunity for you to then start mingling and talking to each other, and who knows, you might be we might find ourselves solving similar problems, and we can collaborate better. So with these few words, colleagues, I want to thank you for honoring us with your presence, and I want to say we have more problems. As we have something to drink, which I don't know what it is, let's find problems that we can solve that are going to make South Africa a better place. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nel Mondo. So there you have it. Of course, we say good night to our online audience. And as the CEO said, go out, be sassy, be sexy, be a scientist. Thank you for joining us. The cocktail is served. All our awardees, we invite you outside to just gather at the little banner